Howdy, everybody. Yes, indeed. So, today I want to talk about and demo this super cool Precision Electronics preamp mixer that I got on eBay for not a whole lot. And I was pretty excited. It didn't come with any of the tubes, but they were tubes that I'm familiar with that I was able to get a hold of. 6 EU7s, dual triodes, a lot like a 12AX7, but run on exclusively on a 6-volt filament. And from what I understand, really, really good tubes, rarely ever go bad. And these ones sound great. So normally I've got the theme music just going into a DI into the mixer, but since we've got a mixer here, today we heard it coming through the auxiliary. And I almost like it better, honestly. And we're only getting, the left channel, but that groove is more or less mono. But yeah, running through some tubes, it sounds really nice. And so this circuit is more or less stock. Just to dive in right to talking about what it is and what I did to it. It's more or less stock. Here on the back, you can see I've added 1/4-inch jacks all along the back for the inputs. It originally came with the old style screw-on Amphenol microphone inputs, which aren't nearly as accessible and useful as the 1/4-inch. The RCA input over here, that's what the SP404 is plugged into. We're hearing in the auxiliary. Hold on, let me change the... So we've got it in the auxiliary, but for kicks, if we were to do upside down and backwards. So now if we kick it over to the phono side, yep, there we hear it. I can't remember, there might be a little bit of EQ on the phono, but I think it's more or less just left and right, or a phono player 1, phono player 2 with your essential cross fade between them, right? Anyway, so I basically just put the 1/4-inch plugs on the back, and also because I was getting curious about, this is all unbalanced in and out. The output over here is an RCA plug that I suppose would go on to some consumer level audio gear, but lately I've been really interested in balanced line level mic preamps, compressors, EQs, and stuff. And so I had one of these old Bogen WMT-1A back in the back. You can see there. I've got the XLR plug punched here on the side. And then I've got that Bogen WMT-1A, which is a line matching transformer. A lot like a DI, and I've got just a little RCA cable that runs from there, from the output to the WMT-1A and on into the XLR. So what we're hearing now, whenever we put something into that amplifier, we're hearing through that balanced line level output, that XLR. And so what else sounds good in here? So we're hearing the line level input. Let me actually, before we get into trying some other sources, I just want to show you the schematic, because I drew up the schematic to this when I from the eBay listing, I was able to see the gut shot well enough to drop this schematic, and I only did a couple of changes. This thing is meant to run with an easy 80, and I didn't have one, and didn't want to order one, so I just set it up for solid state rectifier with a couple of diodes and an extra 10K 2-watt resistor to knock off a little bit of that B plus that the tube rectifier normally would. And then, of course, I changed the mic inputs to 1/4 inch. There was one other thing you may notice there in the input stages, in the plate resistors. Right, first of all, we've got pretty large plate resistor values. I think that says 470, right? So that's a pretty large plate resistor value. But also there's a couple of nodes there that I've got marked remote, because this thing originally had a remote control. You'd run a long cable with a potentiometer at the end of it, and you would turn down the B plus voltage for any given tube, and it essentially would turn down that channel. It's a neat way to do it. I've seen Bogen and RCA do similar things. It's not all that useful, so that is one other thing I changed, is I got rid of the remote resistors and capacitors that basically buffer out that high voltage, and just ran those preamp plate voltages all from the same supply, and that's what we're hearing now. So anyway, the schematic is there. You may notice also I've got drawn up there the line output in the upper right corner. This is from a cathode follower, a cool parallel, it looks like direct coupled cathode follower kind of circuit, and that's what is running into the Bogen WMT-1A line matching transformer, giving us our balanced 600 ohm line level output. So anyway, like I said, I've tried a couple of things into this mixer, and I like a lot of them. So the first thing is line level stuff, like we heard with the SP. Sounds really good going into the line, or the phono or auxiliary level. I remember that's why I wanted to bring up the schematic, because I wanted to see that. You can see there at the bottom, the phono and the auxiliary, both of those go into the mixing network without a preamplification stage. All the mic input channels have a preamplification stage. So your line level stuff can very well go into those RCAs. They can also go into the mic inputs, but you want to make sure not to overdrive them. So yes, we've heard line level stuff into this. Let's take a look at, I've got this microphone that I love. Jeez, that's why I throw it around so much. But this came with an old tape recorder and a Kai M7, and it's just like a high Z mic. And it's the kind of mic that doesn't have a lot of bass response, but I think sounds really cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn down the microphone I've been talking into, which is an SM7 running into a Bogen RP2, tube, preamp, a compressor, all the stuff, right? I'm going to turn that down, and I'm going to turn up this this little microphone right here. And I'll let you guys hear what that sounds like. It should be on channel 3 over here. So here we go. A check, check, check. Yes, indeed. Okay. So that's what this little microphone sounds like in this mixer. It's a fun way to use a microphone like this, especially, in my mind, I like to think of this box as a little DI, a tube DI. You could leave in the live room of your studio. If you want to use a crummy high Z microphone like the old M7 I've got here, run it into this. Run your lines at line level. The other, yeah. So, I mean, I've run this microphone into a bunch of mic preamps, And this one, it might be my favorite. I think it's pretty darn cool. And of course, you know, it is a mixer. You can get your, you know, a couple of things going. If you've got splitters on the front end, pedal boards, stuff like that, you can run dry and wet signals and blend them together here. I've done that with my Nord before. That was pretty cool. But anyway, here I'm going to turn up the regular microphone again. I'll turn this guy down. So that's that Akai microphone. The other thing that I tried into this that I thought sounded pretty darn good was my acoustic parlor guitar that I've got over here. It's got the K&K Pure Western Mini piezo pickup. It's a passive pickup. And, you know, I record with it a lot. I like this amp. I normally don't use the DI all that much. It's the only thing I use when I play live. But when I'm in the studio, I like the sound of the amp a whole lot. But sometimes it's nice to get a DI signal. And I gotta tell you, this one is pretty nice. So I'm gonna once again go ahead and turn down the SM7 that I'm talking into, and let you hear just the DI, so that you can make an evaluation without hearing the little bit of acoustic sounds coming through that microphone I'm talking into. So here is the isolated DI sound coming through mic channel 1. We're about halfway up the volume dial. Okay, right? I think that sounds pretty cool. And yeah, this guy is, that's my hand. This thing is not big. I put a new grounded 3-prong cord on the back, half amp fuse there, and added this neat little handle, which is really useful for wrapping up that cable whenever you got to transport it. But yeah, honestly, I see this as a great little tube DI to leave in the live room of your recording studio, and anytime you want to run a the thing about an acoustic pickup, as I understand it, is in order to sound their best, they like a really high impedance input. And one of the nice things about this particular circuit is the grid leak bias. They've got the cathodes of all of those 6EU7 triodes grounded, and they've got their grid leak resistor and blocking capacitor over here, which yields a really high impedance input, from what I understand. And so I like to think that for that reason, it plays really well with the acoustic input. And of course, you know, depending on what you're trying to do, you don't want to overdrive it. These grid leak resistors, grid leak bias stages, they can be overdriven. I wonder. So, you may or may not be interested in that. Myself, I like the clean sound plenty well. Especially for the bottom end. You know, when I'm recording an acoustic guitar, if I'm getting a direct signal, it's often to beef up the bottom end of the recording. And so the bass response in this, to my ears, is quite nice. And so, yes, that is the Precision Electronics tube mixer direct box. And, you know, one more thought that I had about this is, you know, I like mixers. I like tube mixers. I like tube microphone preamps that are mixers. Something about that I think is just super neat. But at the same time, I understand that, you know, if somebody's using this in the studio, they may or may not be all that interested in mixing different signals together, right? So something that occurs to me is it may be fun to have one, maybe two inputs instead of the four, but rework it to have more tone controls, essentially, or maybe even just one input, but a sort of band pass filter. I've seen some nice looking old schematics that would essentially divide the frequencies into lows, mids, and highs, and then let you mix the lows, mids, and highs to taste, essentially making this a kind of preamp equalizer, DI. That seems pretty cool and interesting to me. I'm going to leave it alone for a little while because honestly I think it sounds so good that there's no real need for me to mess with it. But maybe someday if I get some free time, or there's some interest, I may rework this circuit to maybe say be, you know, input volume low, mid, high, and then on out into the world. Who knows? We'll try it. We'll try it out. We'll see what happens. But until then, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.